So the last story we're going to do here is going to be about Pete Buttigieg. So obviously, as you guys know, Pete Buttigieg, he's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and he's being seen by many people in the Democratic Party as being this so-called rising star, and he's really loved by the establishment because he's gay, he's a young guy, he speaks 6 different languages. Norwegian apparently is one of them, and they see him as like this big time intellectual guy. In reality, he can barely even run his own town, which is 100,000, consists of 100,000 population. He can barely even run that town. So I still don't see how he would even be remotely decent as president. But honestly, I don't even think he's going to be able to get there. But that's just me. But anyway. So in true corporate Democrat, opportunistic politician form, Pete Buttigieg apparently is now in bed with Goldman Sachs, or at least somebody that used to work at Goldman Sachs. So this article is from CNBC. It's titled, Pete Buttigieg hires former Goldman Sachs executive as National Policy Director. And this article is from July 18th or July 19th, one of those. So let's get into the details here. So it says Democratic presidential contender Pete Buttigieg has hired a former Goldman Sachs vice president and Google executive to run his policy shop, his campaign announced Thursday. Sonal Shah, now executive director of the Beek Center for Social Impact and Innovation at Georgetown University, will be the campaign's national policy director. Shah worked at Goldman Sachs from 2004 to 2007 as a vice president, according to her LinkedIn page. She then worked for Google as its head of global development initiatives from 2007 to 2009. The hiring comes as Buttigieg, mayor of South Bend, Indiana, struggles to stake out a clear niche for himself in a crowded Democratic field featuring a number of high-profile progressives. And then this next part, the campaign, they defend this hire as someone being involved in environmental issues. So check it out. It says, in a statement, Buttigieg's national press secretary, Chris Meagher, said that while at Goldman, Shah, quote, wasn't involved in any deals, nor did she benefit from any deals. Yeah, right. Who the fuck believes that? Quoting him further here, it says, she developed and managed Goldman Sachs' environmental strategy. She trained bankers to ask environmental questions, managed the grants to nonprofits, and worked with their real estate team on how to build more green buildings. Okay, see, this is the typical neoliberal corporate Democrat strategy of being like, oh, look, even though I was working for a, corrupt bank that, gave out toxic mortgages and helped tank the economy, don't worry, we were involved in environmental initiatives. We were doing things for the green economy. See how great we are. See how wonderful we are. We care about the environment so much. We're total, lovers of the environment. We love animals and we love green technology and we love Teslas and yeah. You're not in. This person is not an pretending as if this person is some sort of environmental champion pushing for ways to prevent climate change. Get the fuck out of here. And then further continuing on with the article, it says, in contribution records filed with the Federal Election Commission from the period, Shah listed her occupation at varying times as a, quote, investment banker, quote, economist, and, quote, vice president. In early 2017, Shah cheered President Donald Trump's hiring of Goldman executive Dina Powell, first as an economic assistant and later as deputy national security advisor. Isn't that a fucking red flag to people like this? Why are you cheering? First of all, that's not even a good thing, obviously, because Donald Trump being in bed with fucking Goldman Sachs is just as bad as Pete Buttigieg or Hillary Clinton, whoever, being in bed with them. So now all of a sudden, because somebody hired somebody that you knew or somebody that was in the same company that you were in is a good thing. So the right-wing president, the fucking fascist right-winger, getting this person is a good thing to the person that's being hired by a Democrat. And then this person apparently also worked for Barack Obama. It says the campaign emphasized Shah's time working as deputy assistant to the president and as director of the White House Office of Social Innovation and Civic Participation during the Obama administration. Quoting the same there was the press secretary of Pete Buttigieg. It says she worked at the Obama White House after the financial crisis. She doesn't advocate for companies. She cares about having the greatest social impact for people and finding new solutions to tough challenges that require the public, private, and social sectors to work together to find them, Meager said. That's why she is teaching at Georgetown after leaving the White House. Yeah, wonderful. She's a woman of the people, apparently. At Georgetown, Shah was a professor and the founder of the Beek Center for Social Impact and Innovation. That center was founded with a $10 million donation from investor Alberto Beek, a former Lehman Brothers investment banker. Lehman Brothers was another company, another big bank that was involved in the financial crisis that led to the financial collapse of the United States, of the banking industry essentially, and led to our Great Recession, obviously. It says a former Lehman Brothers investment banker who is now focused on the mining, hotels, wealth management, telecom, and tech sectors, according to an online biography. So get a load of this bullshit, man. Not only does this person cheer on the fact that Donald Trump hired one of her buddies, who was from the same company, Goldman Sachs, another executive, as an economic assistant. And look at, Trump's fucking horrible economic record. So this person loves that this person is being hired to push the policies of the right-wing president. That's already bad enough. And on top of the fact that this person was obviously Goldman Sachs, that's already bad. But then she worked, She works for a center, and she's a professor and the founder of this center that received a $10 million donation from a guy that was an investment banker from Lehman Brothers. That is a huge red flag. I mean, that is crazy. This is what I'm saying, man. When it comes to Democrats not having any principles, having the nerve to do these things that clearly it's a problem. I mean, even this article was mentioning it. I didn't quote it, but this article was mentioning how, the kind of the existence of, the relationship that Goldman Sachs has had with various Democrats, as they did with Hillary Clinton, for example, was a big deal. This is a thing that progressives and the people on the left took big issue with, and we still take a big issue with it. So when Pete Buttigieg hires somebody from Goldman Sachs to be on he's a policy director, that's a big fucking deal, because at the end of the day, this person is not getting hired for their environmental expertise. No, they're getting hired because this person is hired because ultimately their former employer, Goldman Sachs, is going to receive some sort of favor. They're going to receive some sort of, payback essentially for, because they allowed them to hire this person. And then it's, so you hired our former employee that did a wonderful job with our environmental shit. So we're going to applaud you for this, and then we're going to honor Pete Buttigieg as a wonderful person, and then we're going to honor our former employee for joining this wonderful campaign. And then what's Pete Buttigieg, President Pete Buttigieg going to do? He's going to give a handout. He's going to give more tax cuts and more essentially government handouts, basically. I forgot what they refer to them as. they do it a lot with like gas and oil and gas companies too. It's like it's basically money for like it's what they call research and development. So like that's what the Obama administration was doing a lot with oil and gas companies when he was president. He was giving what do you call it? He was giving research and development money. He was giving $500 million a year to like random oil and gas companies for research and development. Now that's not the same exact thing they do with companies like, with Goldman Sachs, but that's just one example of what happens. In this case, it's going to be, if it's not going to be something like that, it's going to be something like tax cuts and, lessening, regulations on the banking industry and, obviously deregulating Wall Street and stuff, and just giving more opportunities for, companies like Goldman Sachs to exist and keep screwing people over. So this guy makes this person his policy director. So what's she going to do? You think she's going to be involved? Oh, I'm only going to be involved in some environmental issues. No, you're going to be involved in issues where you're going to ask for former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, so-called, soon-to-be president, God forbid, to be pushing for more deregulation of Wall Street, hopefully bailing out Goldman Sachs the next time we have another financial downturn and a great recession. So we have to bail out Goldman Sachs because you hired me, you better bail out my former company here because all my friends are there and they let you hire me. I used to be at Goldman Sachs, I did, I'm doing them a favor by essentially, joining your campaign and making Goldman Sachs look good because a former employee for Goldman Sachs is now working for a presidential campaign. That's a big deal, right? So obviously that's a big deal. So you better do for them as they want, or else I'm not going to be happy, and then I'm going to resign and shit like that. And I'm going to speak out against, about how you're not, holding to your promises, because these are definitely comes with strings attached. As I said in the last segment regarding, Elizabeth Warren and, fundraising for the DNC, this has strings attached. When you do this kind of favor for a person that works for like in this case, a campaign, and you go out and hire this person and then you make them part of your campaign, you're going to have to do favors for them. And you're going to have to do things when, you're going to have to give into their demands regardless of what they are. And, like I said before, the fact that they're affiliated with, a organization that got a $10 million donation from an investment banker that worked for Lehman Brothers, another company that caused the financial meltdown and the Great Recession, and was involved in all those shady acts of giving out toxic loans and all that stuff, just like Goldman Sachs was, involved in essentially where fraud was a business model, as I think that's what, quoting Bernie Sanders, that's what he said. So when you're affiliated with all those kind of corrupt companies, corrupt big banks and stuff, there's no way we should trust you. And then you're going and working for this guy as his policy director, where you claim you're just gonna, give environmental advice. No fucking way. You're gonna be giving advice on more shit than environment. And if you think we're that fucking stupid to fall for that and trust you to just be focusing on specific policies that involve our environment, then you must think you must be really naive if you think we're gonna believe that. Because if you were actually if you were actually pushing for, environmental issues, you would have been fighting for climate change. You would have been fighting against climate change. You would have been fighting for lessening CO2 emissions and greenhouse gases. You wouldn't be going out there and talking about how, we, as an employee at Goldman Sachs, I was telling people to... Hold on, let me read this part here again because it's hilarious. It says she trained bankers to ask environmental questions, the fuck, managed the grants to nonprofits, okay, and worked with their real estate team on how to build more green buildings. But I mean, I don't understand that. So, but then why don't you go work for why don't you go work for an organization that like puts an end to to CO2 emissions, to end the CO2 emissions that are being let out by oil companies? when they're letting all those CO2 out into the environment? How can we don't stop that? No, you got to make green buildings for Goldman Sachs, because Goldman Sachs, apparently their buildings are letting out CO2 emissions and greenhouse gases. There's no fucking way anybody believes that this person is going to be some environmental person for idiot fucking moron Pete Buttigieg. Nobody fucking believes that. That's utter bullshit. So these people keep wanting to pull the wool over our eyes and thinking that they can fool us. This shit is not going to work, and it's not ever going to work. And if you think it's going to work, you're fucking crazy.